Talk about Christmas and the issue which everybody's talking about. Who should gather at Christmas? Where can you go? What does the UK government doing, which is different from the other nations around the country? And all about coronavirus.
Yeah, that's the big question. Should families actually be getting together? Yesterday, the Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, said the relaxation of restrictions would still go ahead over the festive season, but he advised people to be cautious and to have a very little Christmas. Separately, Wales has announced plans to reduce festive bubbles from 3 to 2 households now, and people in Scotland have been told to avoid overnight stays altogether. So, are you feeling confused? I know I am. So let's talk to Alice Beer. Let's talk first of all, Alice, about the different restrictions. I mean, so many permutations of this. Who are you allowed to see if you live in England now?
OK, well, if you live in England, Boris Johnson has announced that he is not going to alter this Christmas easing, this bubble that you can form, this Christmas bubble that you can form between the 23rd and the 27th of December with 2 other households. So you can become a bubble of 3 households and you can meet for that period of time. And that is allowed. You can meet in a private home, you can meet in a place of worship, or you can meet in a public open space, all within the restrictions of the tier that you live in, sort of geographically. So that goes ahead. Of course, as you've said, other nations have decided to clamp down slightly on this Christmas easing.
Yeah, so Wales is now only 2 households, and Scotland...
Oh, people... can't hear you, Ruth.
So I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? Can you still hear me now? Yes, we said in Wales it's been reduced to just 2 households.
Yes, absolutely. So in Wales, you can meet just 2 households, whereas in England, it's 3 households. Plus, of course, your additional single person, if someone has already joined your family as a bubble, you're still allowed that. And in Scotland, they have said really no overnight stays. So although you've got 5 days to meet up with people, really you should only be meeting with people on one of those days. It's not a 5-day bonanza. So you avoid overnight stays. In Northern Ireland, you get the travel day either side. So on the 22nd and the 28th of December, you have a travel day to get to and from where you're going to be staying for Christmas. And we're expecting in Northern Ireland an announcement later today about how strict the restrictions will be as soon as that Christmas easing period is over.
Alice, let's talk about bubbles, because I think this is another thing people are confused about. Can you see 2 households on Christmas Day and then do another one on Boxing Day? Can you split the days, or do you have to keep that same bubble for the entire Christmas period?
It's one bubble. It's one bubble for the Christmas period. It is funny, isn't it? I had even a friend say, oh, well, you're meeting up with so-and-so on that day, so we can be your bubble the next day. No, that doesn't happen, apart from the fact that we have COVID in our family now and we're not seeing anybody for the whole of Christmas. Your bubble is your bubble, and that stays from the 23rd of December through to the 27th of December. And whether you choose to be with that bubble for the whole of those 5 days or just one of those 5 days, you can see nobody else in that time.
We were talking to the lady that runs the British Medical Journal, the editor yesterday, medical woman herself, very concerned about people mixing. She and many scientists and medical professionals saying that this easing of restrictions, people getting together over Christmas, could cost many lives. If people are still thinking of going ahead, mixing with other people, seeing their families, what can they do? What's the advice to stay safe while doing that?
Well, you're right. The scientific community seemed to be made this very clear. And in the BMJ yesterday, they said that this was a rash decision not to restrict these Christmas bubbles, this Christmas easing, and that it was going to cost lives. So they're asking people to take a sense of responsibility themselves. It's not what you're allowed to do, it's what you should do. And if you are going to be seeing elderly, vulnerable people over Christmas, you should be thinking about wearing masks. Even within your house, you should be thinking about having windows open and increasing the ventilation. and you should be thinking about keeping your distance from those people. So you might question, actually, if we're going to do these things, it's going to make it a very strange scenario. It's going to make it perhaps more awkward than saying, do you know what, let's just wait a while and see each other when it's completely safe, because it's not completely safe now.
Well,
No.
that's when you get to your destination. Thank you very much
Thank
indeed
you,
for
Alice.
that advice, Alice, about bubbles, etc. But what about travelling to whatever destination you're going to King's Cross Station in central London now? Travel expert Simon Calder with that one. Simon, first of all, just a general picture. Overall, what is the official travel advice?
Well, of course, is your journey really necessary is the first question to ask, as we were hearing from Alice just now, as we were hearing on the programme from the British Medical Journal editor yesterday. You really need to have a good reason to be travelling any distance this Christmas. But once you've established if your journey is really necessary, and it is, in your opinion, then you've got the problem of, is your journey actually possible? There is an awful lot going on, particularly that is going to affect the 19 million people in the UK who don't have access to a car. I'm here at King's Cross Station because there will be many hundreds of rail workers actually getting to work from effectively midnight on Christmas Eve, working right through till New Year's Eve. That means no trains from here all the way through that time. There's other engineering works in place in various parts of the world, and a more crucial issue even, and this really doesn't even matter where you are going, you have to have a reservation for long distance trains. Now, Eamonn, you and me might take a bit of getting used to this, because typically, just like the shopping, you get all your shopping done, shops closed Christmas Eve, you run down to the station, you buy an open ticket, you can jump aboard, you might have to stand up from London to Newcastle, but at least you're going to get there. Well, that's not going to happen this year. You've got to have your rail ticket and you've got to have a booking for a seat. There is social distancing on trains. The amount of capacity is being reduced. We're also seeing on GWR from London Paddington to the southwest, Exeter and Plymouth, that there are big problems because they've got an outbreak in one of their depots of coronavirus, and they've got not enough staff for those journeys. So check in advance and plan in advance, please.
OK, and just also, please have consideration for rail workers, you know, people on platforms, people who have to clean those trains, people who drive those trains, man those trains. Because I know, Simon, there's a lot of frustration and anger sometimes at the staff. They're only there doing their job, and we just say, please, 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 everybody have some patience. Which leaves us with other options, the roads being an option. Normally, traffic on certain days very bad over the Christmas holiday. What are you predicting this year for the roads?
Well, it's very difficult to tell because, of course, we're in unknown circumstances. But it looks to me as though next Wednesday, the 23rd of December, is going to be the key date. Remember, it's a working day for millions of people still. It's also the first day of this so-called Christmas easing. And so you're going to see an awful lot of people on the roads, I predict, particularly around the afternoon, evening rush hour. So, of course, if you possibly can, well, the best time to depart is probably about 6 o'clock in the morning on Christmas Day. And, of course, if you're just making a one-day visit to see people, that fits in with the latest advice as well. Of course, as well as the fantastic men and women who are running the railways for us, don't forget the great people who are running National Express and Megabus coaches. They are going to be keeping running, even though there's no trains anywhere on Christmas Day and just a handful on Boxing Day. There will be buses running all the way through London to Birmingham. I think you've got a choice of 4 departures on Christmas Day, thanks to National Express. They're doing wonders too to get people where they really need to be.
And if you live in Ireland and you need to be there, you would have to fly or use the boat to get there. What can you tell me on those fronts?
Well, yes, it was interesting. You've got effectively an extra day either side, the 22nd and the 28th. Those particular dates, there's very, very little room, and prices are pretty high for the capacity that's remaining. If you can do something like go out on Christmas Eve, no flights on Christmas Day, by the way, between Northern Ireland and Great Britain, but come back on Boxing Day. There's still actually some pretty good fares around. I found one for about £64 return from Luton to Belfast International, but of course they are going fast, capacity is restricted. And once again, if your journey isn't really necessary, let's stay at home.
Yeah, and the advice, I mean, if you live in the UK travelling abroad, I think it's a no-no from Scotland and Wales. I'm not sure what the situation is out of Northern Ireland at the moment. England, though, you can fly abroad, yeah, no matter what your tier is.
Yes, it's an extraordinary situation. Exactly right, Eamonn. Wales says no travel abroad. Scotland says no travel abroad. Northern Ireland says, effectively, it's up to you. Think very carefully about whether you are going to do this. Whereas England, there's always been, ever since we invented the tier system, if you're in tier 3, which most of us are these days, you are still allowed to go to an international airport and fly to your destination. And by the way, overnight, Tenerife announced, the government of the Canaries said, right, Tenerife is closed from midnight tonight for 2 weeks, so the rest of the year. But I have just established in the past few minutes that does not apply to arriving international travellers. But of course, if you're flying out to anywhere in the Canaries, you're going to need a PCR test negative taken in the 72 hours before you arrive. It's a tough time to be a traveller. It's a tough time for everyone, of course.
Well, thanks for your advice, and thanks for bringing us up to date, Simon. Keep safe, keep well, wherever you're going, whatever you're doing. Love the jumper.